right, so we are back for another week. Football with the Great American Youth, Season 3. And, I mean, we had – we'll get into it into a second, but one of the closest, one of the most tightly contested games in league history, this season. A few parallels from previous seasons as well. I was saying we might be seeing history repeat itself a little bit in our league. So, we're excited to recap the past few weeks. And, yeah, let's get into it.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll start it off as per usual with the stories of the week. Obviously, I think that one of the biggest is Ravens taking down the Bengals. That was really a feisty matchup. The loser would have been really in bad shape, and the Bengals are now 1-4. So they're not looking good right now. They really need to start winning games. But the Ravens, I think they started 0-2, but I think they're fully back now. I think that win kind of cemented they're arguably the best team in the AFC, maybe behind the Chiefs. But that was a huge win, a shootout win. They came back. Lamar made big plays. Derrick Henry made big plays. That team's legit.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to see with the Bengals. I mean, Joe Burrow has played really well statistically this year, for all the questions maybe about, is he an elite quarterback actually? He's played up to standard on paper this year, but their defense has continued to allow so many points. And against the Ravens, they allowed a lot of big plays that ended up seeing them lose that game. So unfortunate for the Bengals. Curious to see if they rebound, but like you were saying about the Ravens, they've reestablished, or I guess confirmed themselves atop the AFC again this season with that victory. Coming out of that as well, I would say the Niners. This is another, I would say kind of similar to the Bengals, just team that's like had a weird start to the season so far. Granted, injuries to Christian McCaffrey. I think didn't Debo miss a week or two as well?
Kittle missed a week. Yeah, a few guys have, so but they still are a relatively healthy team. That losing the 49ers, they really sold that game. They're up by 12 in the fourth quarter, 14, something like that. Cardinals came all the way back and just won it. And I think they picked off Purdy to end the game or something like that, where they had a chance and they couldn't come through. So Cardinals really they're an inconsistent team, but the 49ers really need to figure it out. Yeah. And then I'm going to go right to the next one. What do you think of the Vikings? Are they playoff contenders? I mean, the two things I do want to bring up. Sam Darnold started, I think 3-0 or 4-0 with the Panthers a couple years ago, and that team completely fell off. And then another thing too, the last 5-0 team to miss the playoffs was the Vikings with Sam Bradford, if you remember.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Was the last team that did this well and that wasn't legit was also the Vikings. So precedent has shown us that this doesn't have to mean that much. I do think, however, though, that I think this is a legit team. And going into this week against the Lions, this is a huge game for them in terms of establishing. No, they are really a top dog in the NFC. Darnold's been consistent so far. They have a pretty solid running game. Justin Jefferson, what they're getting out of him. They still don't have T.J. Hawkinson back on offense. This is a really solid team with a lot of good, just young pieces all around. I think this is a legit team. I think the Jets, I think really, and, kind of curious what you think about coming out of this game as well. This game is the last game for Robert Saleh as the head coach of the Jets getting fired after the loss. I mean, I think was more surprising.
That was crazy.
Yeah, what do you think about that? And I guess where the Jets are at this season.
That was kind of shocking. I mean, they really could have won the Broncos game if they didn't miss that field goal. So really, they could be 3-2 coming out of this game, and they fired the coach, which I find kind of crazy. I don't think you fire a guy like that this immediate or this early in the season, but especially with a contending team like that, you're really just throwing the team in the dumpster, in my opinion. I think the owner thinks he's making the right move for the current team, but I honestly think this is just going to cause more chaos. And I also saw today he demoted Nathaniel Hackett. He's not going to be calling plays, and that's Aaron Rodgers' guy. So it just doesn't sound like it's going to be going well there in New York, especially because I did see Rodgers had apparently nothing to do with it. Which is it's a little surprising, honestly. I thought he could have, but I mean he didn't. So I don't know. What do you think about that all?
Yeah, no, I mean, it seemed like a lot of what I was reading was that like a lot of players were surprised that Salah himself, he wasn't expecting this. And I mean, even coming out of that loss, 2-3, it's not a great place to be in, but it's early in the season. And, this is a team that, I think has shown that they are talented still. It's not like they've played like a Panthers have, or, their defense has been as poor as a Bengals team has been. So it definitely is interesting to see them make that move now. Also, just curious because it's like, what's going to get better exactly? Like, I don't know. It's not like the Jets are like a young, inexperienced team that's, trying to develop, or like, they have a quarterback who's like on the cusp and they need to push forward. It's like, this is a team that's trying to win a championship now. I mean, I'd be curious. I thought about this when I saw it, but like, how many teams have won a Super Bowl when hiring a coach mid-season? Like, how many times has that happened? That doesn't seem. I would be willing to bet that's in the single digits. That's probably not a high number.
It's probably zero, because if you're
Yeah.
firing a coach or hiring a coach in season, that means you probably started off bad.
Exactly. So
I mean, this is a rare case where it's 2-3, and you could still probably turn the season around. But like most of the firings are probably later in the season. This actually might be one of the earliest firings. I don't know, like historically, but just seems really early in my opinion.
Yeah.
But on a positive note for us, Commanders, man, I don't even know what to say anymore. This is unreal. We're back.
Is this better? I mean, compared to RG3, just like the vibes for you, how is this? Is this better? Is this worse? Is it the same? Like, what is the feeling for you?
I don't feel ridiculous saying this, but I honestly don't even remember what that felt like now. It's been 12 years almost since the RG3 days. Like, in his prime, it was 12 years ago, about, to this day, probably. When he probably tore his ACL against the Ravens. Honestly, I'm a little scared for this game. I hate to say it. We play the Ravens next. I'm a very superstitious guy. I swear, if Gaten gets hurt this week, I'm gonna be a mess. But I think we're pretty legit right now, and I'm excited to keep watching this team play. Like I've never seen us dominantly win a game like how we beat the Browns in years. Like honestly, when's the last time you think we've won a game that easily?
I don't know, and it's really just the team firing on all cylinders as well. I think that was one thing headed into this game.
It's not just the offense.
Yeah, a lot of the narrative coming into this game was that, our defense has been so poor that, even though Deshaun Watson and the Browns offense has struggled, that this was a game they were going to be able to take advantage and that they might be able to show through. But our defense, they showed up. They did what they had to do. They, again, showed us, I guess, reminded everyone the Browns are awful. Deshaun Watson is awful. But, also just showed we have a solid defensive unit. Things may not have been going great so far this year in terms of the statistics, but this unit can make stops when they need to, and they can win us games dominantly, which we were able to do. I think this game against the Ravens is going to be a real measuring stick to see. It's like, all right, where are we really? Where is Jaden Daniels really? But I think this is this team feels legit, and I mean, right now, I mean, we're playing better than any other team in the NFC East right now. I don't think that the record is. I mean, the record reflects that, but I think the play reflects that right now too.
You could almost say we're playing as good as any team in the NFL right now. I don't think that's ridiculous to say. Offensively, at least, definitely. Anyway, honestly, I think we're having like a historic season in terms of like punting the ball, turnovers, stuff like that. But I just hope it stays. So, we're playing a tough Ravens team this week. We'll see how that goes. What are your thoughts about that game? And then we can move on.
I mean, is it in?
What are your
predictions? Is it in Baltimore or is it in?
I could check right now.
FedEx, yeah.
In Baltimore.
Yeah, it's in Baltimore. I'm
gonna love that, but
I'm gonna lean Ravens here just because. I mean, it pains me, but. Going into Baltimore, the Ravens have been on a good little streak too. I think they started off the season poorly. That really jolted them into gear. I think this is especially coming off the game where they just grinded a victory against the Bengals. Granted, seeing some of the holes that the Bengals offense created in the Ravens. You'd think that Jaden Daniels could do some of the same, but I just on the premise of, we've seen Lamar win an MVP, go through the playoffs, do certain things. We haven't seen our team do that yet. So I'll go with the Ravens this week, but I think it's going to be a close competitive game. Like, I don't think it's going to be a game that will make us any less excited about the future of the team.
I hope so. Let's just pray for no injuries. That's all I'm thinking about. But yeah, let's get back into fantasy world. We missed a week, so we'll go back through the week 4 results real quick. I am pretty ashamed to admit I lost to the down bad person of the week that week.
You gave him a dub.
I gave him a dub, his first dub of the season, probably only dub of the season if I'm being real. But my team just did not do well, and I mean his team really fired off on all cylinders. I mean McConkey went off, Amon-Ra went off, DeAndre Swift went off. DeAndre Swift was out of nowhere, so that really pissed me off. Kyron Williams was the only guy that had a decent game for me. It was just a rough week, and 78 points is not going to get you a win in any week, so not too happy about that. I mean, you just had a roll through that week.
Yeah, I mean, my team, I think the highlight of this week for me was seeing Justin Fields put up the performance he did. I'm pretty sure he got 2 rushing touchdowns. So it was he showed through on the potential that I was talking about in the last episode of, like, he's one of those top running quarterbacks. And if you want to have a team that, has that next level of upside, you need one of those. So for him to be able to show through on that, even in a loss, I think is really big. And heading into this week, I know Russell Wilson has started to practice with the team in full capacity a bit more. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that situation plays out. But I'm a bit biased as a Justin Fields. I was about to say, I own Justin Fields. As a Justin Fields fantasy owner, I feel a little bit biased. But I think he's done everything he's needed to deserve that starting spot. And I think long term, he is more of an answer for Pittsburgh than Russell Wilson. He's only 25. So I think it's, I'm hopeful 100%. That they continue on with Justin Fields as their starting quarterback. And continue to utilize him as a runner, because it did me big favors week 4.
Definitely.
But we gotta move past week 4. We had one more matchup. Week 4 went into big matchup head to head between me and Jacob. Last year was a pretty, just for some context, last season when we went into our head to head, Jacob was undefeated. I took Jacob 0 from him, gave him his first loss of last season. Coming into this year,
you did.
Well, first let me. I'm getting ahead of myself. We have a trade, right? 45 minutes before our matchup starts. You let me go through the trade for me.
It was a very last-minute trade. It was honestly the quickest trade I've ever struck. It was with Matt Levin. We didn't update that. It says Adwin, but I got David Njoku and Cortland Sutton. That's my bad. I messed it up that side. But first trade of the year, we got to call it out at least. Matt Levin got Isaiah Likely, Kyler Murray. I could not handle playing or dealing with either of those players anymore. I probably could have got a better price thinking about it now. But honestly, I just really wanted those players off my team, and I needed a tight end really desperately. I didn't really Sutton. I would take. He's had some targets, which I do like, but I'll probably end up dropping him realistically. And then David Njoku, I think if he really pans out, he could be a top 5-10 tight end potentially, and that's what I'm hoping for here. I don't think Likely is a dependable option, and Kyler Murray is too inconsistent for me, so I just had to get rid of him. But that's the trade. I mean, as of now, as of this week, I don't think it really looked the best for me, but I did end up getting the win, and that's, I guess, all that matters. But we'll get into that right now. If you want to take it away with, I kind of wrote it, but
I mean, the title might have given it away. It was what were those 3 yards? 3 yards was the difference between me winning and losing against Jacob this week. This is probably the closest matchup I've ever had in fantasy. It came down to Monday Night Football
Couldn't agree
with
more.
Kareem Hunt, and I mean, how are your I guess, you got to win. This was a big win for you in your season. We were talking about this significant win for you. How do you feel about it? Really close matchup as well. And, your team pulling through, on a lot of different areas. How do you feel about this week's matchup?
We scraped by. It was not a great week. I think Garrett Wilson that was the only thing I was very happy about. He finally showed up in a game where no one really expected him to. I know that made Anthony a little salty after it's around 11 o'clock.
Mad, bro.
Steaming a little bit. That was huge for me though. Like I needed that so badly. But honestly, I was just happy my team came through somehow. Honestly, I mean Deontay Johnson sold. Debo did not have a good game, which hurt me. It was just a rough week, and David Njoku obviously had a rough week, but other players came through as I needed them. So I mean, 103 in this league, you can get by. You can scrape away with some wins. I need more to like get wins against going forward. Honestly, I need to be putting up like 115 realistically, but yeah, and I got lucky with Anthony's team not really performing there, and that Monday night was insane. I was freaking out watching that. I thought you had at first going into the game. I thought I had it easily up like 20 points ish.
Yeah.
Then it went right to you with when Kareem Hunt goes for 8 on the first drive. That killed me. Scared me at least. And somehow I pulled through. I don't know how. It came down to 3 literal yards. There's a play where he went for 4 yards, like right before, and then he got taken back for like 4. That 4 yards saved me. It was crazy.
Yeah, no,
I just can't get over that.
Yeah, it's easily the closest matchup I've ever had, and I mean it's as disappointing as it is. We'll get into the standings in a second, but I'm not devastated by this loss. Just more annoyed. I think my team in a few areas. Metcalf only getting 5.5 points, pretty disappointing, especially against the Giants. Kenneth Walker only getting 11, pretty similarly disappointing performance. Dalton Kincaid, he's been all right for me this year, but again, that's like just 1 reception away from winning me that game. And yeah, just
literally
all around, and even
one catch away.
Game, like
if you had one more catch,
like it's just frustrating to be that close to a win and have players who underperformed. But that's fantasy. I'd rather get my 3-yard loss out in the regular season than get that out in the finals or the playoffs. That would be even more infuriating. So, it's frustrating, but
week 5, you'll take it.
Yeah,
not that
week
bad.
5, it's okay. And honestly, like even in my, I think this is, my second worst week of the season, but like my win against Sebastian, that was a bad week for my team, and I was still able to pick up a win. So in another down week for my team to put up 100+ points and barely lose, like that's I can't complain about that. My team is not performing to its full capacity and is still able to put up good points and is still able to win. So that gives me confidence that my record will sustain. I'm hoping, I'll knock on wood, that we can keep the good things going for the rest of the season. But fine taking a loss at some point. It's okay. Can't be perfect.
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, Matt Cohen also lost, the other undefeated team, so that leads us right into the standings. No more undefeated teams, no more winless teams. It's not that much disparity, I feel like. There's like a clear top 2, I feel like, with you and Cohen. There's as of now, kind of clear bottom with some teams, but the middle is
strong middle class for our league right now, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, even if, and I think it's interesting, we were talking about this before, even looking at it's a lot of teams in between that, we have 8 teams in between that 3-2 and 2-3 record. Interesting to see just the difference in playoff percentage. Like Adwin's 3rd place right now, but he's 57% playoff percentage compared to Max, who's only a game back, but is 27%, which I'm kind of confused about. ESPN's kind of fraud checking you, Max. I can't lie. You gotta step your game up a little bit. You gotta rebound from that. And then Matt and Joel having a higher percentage than Max is interesting, but then you and Adwin being on the same level. So, it's just interesting place right now. But again, me and Cohen still at the top. Feel pretty good about that. And you're still in the mix. I think you definitely a lot better
Scraping
off
by.
being 2-3. Being 2-3 is a lot different than being 1-4. So I think being in that middle group definitely helps you out. You're tied for the last playoff spot right now, only one game back of the rest of the pack. So still pretty solid positioning for the both of us.
Yeah, I like where I'm at, but I'd love to be where you're at. Hate to say it. And then, let's get into next week. Big matchup against Ian. I mean, I'm projected to win by, right now, about 16 points, which, I'll take that. But I don't know. It's really going to come down to how I think Lamar, the Ravens, and the Commanders game goes, because we both have Lamar and Jaden Daniels. I think if Lamar goes off and Jaden Daniels has a rough game, I think that could honestly kill me this game. Like, I already am down Kyron Williams, one of my best players. I really need like a strong performance out of him. But I'm not too worried about the rest of his team at the moment. I do think he has some players that could break out, which is like Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Amari Cooper could even, Bijan definitely could. Definitely worried about some of those players, but I do think my receivers are pretty strong compared to his. And I really just need Jaden Daniels to put up a good performance here, and I think I can get the win. I need it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be
really all I got with my matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Ian's been no disrespect. Ian's at the bottom of the league right now. We didn't make him a down bad team. We're not gonna set up a similar Alex jinx and prepare him for the win. But Ian's team is a little bit weak, even though he has. I do think it's interesting. Eckler's projected for a lot lower, but he's been doing pretty well when he's healthy. So I think that
he has been.
Eckler's probably a bit underrated. But yeah, I think you have the better team, and if you were to go down this week, I think it would be more about your team doing your team would have to have some guys be seriously underperforming for that to end up being the case.
See, that's how I felt most of the year, and I'm 2-3 right now. I should be 1-4. I was under the impression I would be 1-4 at this point. I should be tied with Ian 1-4 right now. This should be the garbage.
Should be a bottom feeder match.
Basically. But yeah, let's get into a more a better matchup with you and Lucas. He's 3-2, right? Let me double check that.
Yeah, 3-2.
Lucas, wow. It's a little bit of a fraudulent 3-2.
Yeah, Lucas has been fueled by. I mean, Cooper Kupp, and he has Puka as well. That was nice for him.
And AJ Brown was injured.
AJ is those are good. All those guys injured. He had a Jawan Jennings week. He started Jawan Jennings and got 40-something points off of him. So that was an easy win for him. I don't see Jawan Jennings, doing that again. I don't know. I don't feel
tonight.
Yeah, it's I'm not too pressed about Lucas's team. I feel pretty good about where I'm at. Not sure if Jonathan Taylor will be back this week or not. So I think that'll be a decision to be made. Maybe I throw in, I'm not really sure with the, I forget his name, Tyrone Tracy or whatever his name is. He played well for the Giants. So now Singletary may not mean anything. We'll see how that goes. But someone else maybe instead of Taylor goes in. But otherwise, I feel really good about my team. I think we're in a solid spot. Last week was a bit of a blip, but even if I put up 103 against Lucas, that's still projected to do more than what his team is supposed to do right now. So I feel pretty solid, hoping to rebound this week with a victory. Definitely don't want to start sliding too much. I like my positioning right now. I know we talked about it earlier. I want to get to those 6 wins. I'm at 4 right now, so I'm close. I'm only 2 away. Don't want to start sliding down the rankings and start going on a losing streak. I'd love to pick up that 5th victory and keep myself at pace for that bye week. That would be ideal for me. So
big.
So we'll see.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's get into our favorite segment, obviously.
Favorite.
The over-under. It definitely is. As you can see, the picks we made were not too hot. They all went under. As for the players, not necessarily what we picked.
Yeah.
But Devontae Adams, I mean, that was just unlucky. I mean, he was projected to play, and now he's projected to get traded, probably to New York. Like, who knows what's going to happen there. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you want to pass over that?
I mean, I think we're just going to ignore the fact that we both picked over for Devontae Adams last week. We can't. That had no say. Yeah, it was a DMP. So this pick this pick didn't count. We don't know what he would have done. I do think it'll be. Do you think it'll be interesting to see where he goes? Because it's a team like Kansas City. Maybe he is fantasy relevant. Maybe that's a bit bigger implications for their offense as well. If he goes to a team like the Jets, I'm not sure how. I mean, for the Jets, in real life, football-wise, I think that's a great move for them. Probably really helpful for Aaron Rodgers, just getting someone in for him. But fantasy-wise, I don't know if he really makes too much of an impact being thrown into that committee. So curious to see.
Yeah.
I was going to say, curious to see how he ends up. I'd love to see him on the Commanders. I think, throw him in with us, throw him on the other side of Terry. I'd love to see that. We're playing well right now. We're up. Maybe that's the type of trade that would make sense for us. So we'll see. I guess. What are your opinions on where Devontae goes and kind of the future of that?
Honestly, they're pretty much exactly as you said. I agree with the Jets' take about I don't think he'd be fantasy relevant or as fantasy relevant with like Breece Hall there, with how much they use, even Braylon Allen and now Mike Williams too with Garrett Wilson. That's just a lot of weapons there, and I don't think Devontae is really going to make that big a difference if he's there. He'll definitely help, but I don't think he's going to get as many targets as he was getting even with the Raiders. So I hate to say it, but I do think I just want him to come to the Commanders. I think that would be unreal. I think he'd be part of the top two receiver duo. Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing him go to the Chiefs either. I think that would be kind of cool to see them really contend for that three-peat. I hate to say it, but I mean that's history, so it would be cool to watch. But yeah, I think there are a couple good options for him, but I don't want to see him go to the Jets. That's all I can say. And then getting back into the other ones, Khalil Shakir, under 9.7. We took the over. He got 8.2. I mean, that's one catch. That's a one 10-yard catch. Like, come on. You can't blame us there. Let's be real.
Yeah, and then
we were close.
It was like into your matchup too with Mahomes. We were spot on. Our Mahomes hate right on target there. He did not put up a good performance. And Mahomes, like fantasy wise, has just been pretty like meh so far this year.
He's been okay at best.
Yeah, curious to see. Obviously it's early on, so I'm sure he'll pick up as he always does. But capitalized on the pick there, and then for Josh Jacobs, you went for the over. You pump faked us. You told us you were going to go under. You went over. He ended up going under. So I end up getting the point for this, only 9.8. And Josh Jacobs, I mean, how do you feel about him? Because I feel like it's been he's had, he started off the season really well, clearly very talented, but it's not. He's had a few like iffy performances.
He hasn't been as good as I would have thought, honestly. I do think he'll pick it up. The offense need to get some better rhythm. Like that game that we picked him, or I picked him for under or over. That was the Vikings game where he went down. They went down like 28-0, something like that, relatively early in the game, and the team was throwing the rest of the way to come back. So it was like he wasn't in the game script. I mean, still getting 9.8, I'll take that, but it would have been nice if he could have been more involved. If it was a closer game. So I think he will get more involved as the season goes on. Like they're playing the Cardinals. I think they've had some tough matchups, but I think they'll figure it out offensively, and Jacobs will hopefully start going over his line, and I'll start catching up in this over-under.
So, yeah, going into the standings so far, I'm up 2-1. I won last year, so, getting off to an early start. I can't.
You came down the wire, though.
I was going to say, Well, also similar to last year, you were the undefeated last year, or you were the undefeated team last year. I beat you in the regular season, and then I ended up going on to win the league. I also was losing for most of the over/under, ended up coming back at the end to win that.
Literally.
So maybe this is your year. You took my O from me.
I hope.
You took my O from me. So, to be determined on whether or not you end up winning the championship. And, I'm starting off the over/under on a good foot. So maybe the podcast energy is going to go your way this season, and we're going to end up seeing you take home both of those. But we'll see. It's early.
We'll see. Right now, you got the early head start, so I'll have to come back. So, but I am excited to see. Hopefully that dream comes to fruition. We'll see that. But let's get into this week's edition. You could kick it off with Justin Fields over 19.2 against Vegas.
They've been increasing Justin Fields' projections over the last few weeks, and I think that's just due to him playing well. He's been included in the rushing game. He's thrown for passing touchdowns, at least one each of the last 4 weeks. So he's been playing well. He's been on a roll. And this Vegas team is awful. They don't really have a good quarterback. Their offense has been stagnant. I think that, this is a good opportunity for Justin Fields, particularly coming off of that loss against Dallas. I think this is a game that he's going to feel more pressure to perform well, to really, show out, especially with Russell Wilson being healthy. So I'm going to bet on Justin Fields doing that, having a good performance, putting on a show, and I'm going to say he's going to go over that 19.2.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not going to be copying you with every pick again. We're not going to be doing the same pick. And again, I didn't copy you fully last week, but 19.2 against Vegas, that doesn't seem that high. I feel like if it was more like 23, I'd probably feel comfortable taking the under. But even so, I think you give a great rationale. I think with Russell Wilson being back, he's going to have a lot of fire in him. And this is not a great Vegas team. I think he'll be able to drop at least 20 points against them. That's not really that much for him. I mean, he almost got 20 in this loss this week against the Cowboys in a bad game. Like, it just not looking like I don't know how he got that many, honestly, but he did come through. So I think 20 that's literally a touchdown more from last week, and I think he could get that done. Definitely against a bad Vegas defense. And then I'll lead it off with A.J. Brown. So we're both over on Fields, but A.J. Brown, 12.8 first game back. I do want to see if Devonta Smith is playing, because if Devonta Smith is out,
I think he is playing. I'm pretty sure he's back too.
He is?
Yeah.
They're both playing. I could see this game being a blowout. I could see Philly just killing Cleveland. Like, I don't think Cleveland's a good team. I do think they need to bounce back at some point, but I do think they get A.J. Brown involved, too. Like, I think he gets closer to 10 points. I do think he'll score a touchdown. I do think he'll get a lot of yards, but I could see this game being a quick blowout. And with him coming off an injury, I think they try to pull him out of the game early if they do get up big. So I'm going to go with the under here. A bit more of a probably bolder take, but I'm going to take the under for A.J. Brown. What about you?
I think this is where we're gonna go our separate ways for the first pick here. I'm gonna go with the over on A.J. Brown. He's only played one game so far this year, but I'm pretty sure he dropped like 20 points in that game or around that. Like, he had a really good performance. And Jalen Hurts has been starved for pass catchers the past few weeks. I mean, I think Dallas Goedert has been the biggest beneficiary of that. There was a week where Goddard got like double-digit targets and or receptions just because they don't have anyone else really reliable for him to throw the ball to. Even though the other pass catchers are going to be coming back this week, I think that, A.J. Brown getting a full week of practice, did they have a bye week last week, or was it? Yeah, it was like the bye week leading into this as well. I think that he's going to be ready to go. And I do, your point about the blowout, I wasn't thinking about that. And that made me like want to switch my pick for a second, but I'm going to stick with the over. Even if it is a blowout, I do see A.J. Brown being involved and, getting the targets and receptions he needs to push that 12.8.
Yeah, I like that. I like that rationale too. But we're going our separate ways here. I like that. I feel like David Montgomery might be one we agree on. I'll kick it off with going with the over here for him. Getting into my matchup with Ian, obviously. but David Montgomery has gone over this number every single game by a good point, and they're playing a bad Dallas defense. I don't know why this projection is that low. I mean, obviously it's possible Jahmyr Gibbs just has the game of his life and David Montgomery isn't as involved, but it's been pretty split all season. They've both been averaging around 15, 16 points a game. He's been getting his carries at least 11 a game. I mean, he scored a touchdown a game. I think I'm at least going to get 13.3 out of him. I don't know how much more, but I could see him getting in the 20s. So I'm definitely going to go with the over on David Montgomery against Dallas. What about you?
I think this is an interesting one because he's gone over this every game pretty comfortably. He's gotten into the end zone every game as well. Just so we can, we'll differ on this one as well. I'm going to go with the under. I think this is a game that Dallas is, I think Dallas is starting to, I think offensively, Dallas is finding their stride. I think that defense is poor, but I could see this being more of a shootout and maybe more of a game that lends itself to Jahmyr Gibbs than it does David Montgomery. So I could see David Montgomery, still getting that goal line work, still getting into the end zone potentially, and he's going to get that same volume that he does regardless. But I'm going to go with the under here. I think it'll be close, just based off of the touches that he gets, but I'm going to go with under based off of game flow and maybe for them opting for a bit more pass catching from Jahmyr Gibbs as opposed to David Montgomery.
I like it. We're mixing it up this week, getting some new picks in over under. I went first with the last two, so I'll let you kick this one off first, unless you want me to go first. Your call.
I mean, I'll take this one. I don't have much to say. The Browns just aren't very good. Amari Cooper hasn't gotten over 9.6 points all year long. I similarly envision this being a blowout, like you said, and even if it's not, I mean, we still haven't seen the Browns offense do anything this year. So this is a pretty clear under for me. Honestly, if they were starting Jameis Winston, it would maybe give me more thought about whether or not this over-under is fair. But the way Deshaun Watson has played this year gives me no confidence to go with the over on Amari Cooper here. So it's got to be under.
I respect that. And you know what? I'm going to throw a curveball, and I'm going to go with the over. I honestly do think – I was watching the full Commanders game. Amari Cooper played 95% of that game. He played when it was a blowout, which I was a little bit surprised about. When Njoku was out, I think he might have been injured, though, too. But Amari Cooper played the full game. He was getting targets, especially near the end of the game. And I do think you bring up a point with Jameis Winston. I could see him coming into the game. If this is a blowout early – Stefanski is going to get really criticized, I think, if he continues to stick with Watson. So why not give him a chance? Worst case, he throws a pick. The game's already over. I think that could be very beneficial to the offense, at least just seeing what it's like with him. I think that could be very beneficial to Amari Cooper. I'm going to take the over. Even if it is a blowout, I do think he gets over this line. I think he can. He's a productive receiver. That's one touchdown for him, really, with a big play. I could see it happening. I don't think the Philly defense is that legit yet. I mean, they let Kirk Cousins go right down the field and score a touchdown. I know Kirk's been looking good recently, but that was earlier on in the season. So I don't know. I kind of see – I think he could go over here. It's probably a bit more of a hot take. I do agree with a lot of what you said for the under, but I'm gonna take the over here. 3 different picks for us, Let's see what happens here. I need to catch up a bit.
Here we go. We'll have some good score variants headed into next week. But yeah, there we go. I guess that's all we got for you. Big recap of the last few weeks. We're headed into a big week this week as well. And yeah, we're looking forward to chatting to you guys again. Maybe some big trades on the way. Hopefully some good results for the both of us. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.